Hey everyone, welcome back to the Can I Ask You a Question podcast. Each week on the podcast, we're exploring questions and unlocking wisdom, either through solo episodes with myself or deep dive interviews with the most interesting people in my world. You know, we really like to focus on a specific question, especially in these solo episodes, one question each episode. And today is political. It is Trump versus Kamala. Who should I vote for? It's a question that I ask myself. It's a question that you're probably asking yourself, and it's one I want to dive into today. Just a quick disclaimer. All the views in this episode are purely mine as a private citizen, and they don't represent any other organization that might be connected to just me as a private citizen discussing my political thoughts. I debated doing this episode because politics can get divisive and it can be cynical, and mainly I want this show to be a place of optimism and open-mindedness. And I don't think, which is why I ultimately made the decision to do it, that those things are unresolvable. I think you can talk about politics and still keep an open mind and stay optimistic and respectful and all of that. And we're going to do that today. I said on this, I've said before on the podcast, I believe, or in writings, that I want this podcast to be a place where no topic is off limits, and that includes politics. It's something that right now during the current election season is on my mind every single day, and I'm checking news every day. It's a part of most table, dinner time, lunchtime conversations that I'm having with people in my life, and I'm guessing that for many of you guys, it's something that you're thinking about a lot too. Other people, maybe not so much. Maybe it's not really on your mind. I don't have any problem with that. It's cool. You can focus on other stuff, enjoy other things. But for many of us, we're highly interested. We're highly concerned. We're highly invested in wanting to see our nation go politically and in our justice system and all those things in a good direction, and recognize that it could go the other way for a season anyways. And we would rather not have that happen. As we explore the question of Trump versus Kamala, I'm not coming to you as an expert. I'm sharing with you my personal views and insights as of today. And kind of just to have fun with it. Generally, I have a kind of a rule that when I'm referring to, I don't usually refer to Trump. I usually refer to President Trump or former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. Today we're having fun with it, so we're just kind of going by short names, Trump and Kamala. But I do believe in honoring the office and honoring the people that are there, even if I disagree with whoever the person may be. Even if I disagree with a lot of stuff, I want to honor where I can. Just the very fact that they hold that office, if nothing else. And usually there's something to be appreciated about. Usually they're working hard for the nation. I obviously, as you're going to see, I have pretty strong feelings in a certain direction on Trump versus Kamala. But generally speaking, I want to be honoring, and so I'm going to shorten it today for the fun of it. But usually, I like calling people by their proper title. We'll be comparing both candidates. Obviously, most people listening to this are from the USA. Maybe I have some friends from Canada or anywhere else in the world that are listening. Hello. We're going to be talking about, we're referring to the two major presidential candidates in the 2024 presidential election, which is just about to happen here in the U.S. And how we're going to do it is we're going to be comparing both candidates on a wide range of topics. I hope that you're gonna kind of see and maybe appreciate that the approach to the political conversation on this show is going to maybe be a little bit different than other places. We're trying to look big picture, review pros and cons. I wrote here, the pursuit of wisdom is the aim of this podcast, more than the election of one person. And so we're going to keep having conversations, whatever happens in early November at the election. That's not the primary aim of this show. It's to really help you grow and become the person God called you to be, live the life He called you to live. But politics plays a big part in that. It affects all of us, and it definitely is a place to test and sharpen your critical thinking and discernment and understanding. So we're going to hopefully have a different kind of approach, try to be fair to both sides. So if you're mad, why aren't you being harder on one side or the other? Um, I'm trying to be honest where we can be, and then sort of leave it to you to decide and to weigh things out. With that, let's dive in. I'm looking forward to this episode. Okay, so the first thing I want to look at for the presidential candidates is personal qualifications. I have some ideas for some future episodes that would kind of maybe outline some of my more political philosophy, which I'm continuing to develop and kind of codify and see, okay, what is that called? What's that kind of philosophy called? Is there already a camp of people that sort of sit there? So this one's just more specifically two candidates, some general areas, and we're going to kind of rate them comparative to one another. Other time I'd maybe do a larger kind of one or more philosophical, big political podcasts, and then maybe gonna jump in deeper on certain policies more. But this is just kind of a broad. And the first area that I thought was kind of interesting is just to look at them as a person in terms of as a candidate and see how that stacks up. And so number one under personal qualifications, not necessarily in any particular order, though this makes sense as number one, is character. How does Trump compare versus Kamala on this? Let's start with Trump. Trump, he has noteworthy, confirmed, and alleged moral failures in his past. So that's well publicized, and some of them are alleged, some of them are very likely false, and some of them are, I think, not even he's arguing that he was divorced multiple times. I don't think he argues that he had at least one affair that I think was part of ending one of his marriages. So these are some confirmed, I believe, moral failures. I don't think he's denying, and there will be things that he has denied. So that's where Trump kind of is in his past. The thing about the past is you can't change it. Problem is people tend to try, and I think that's wrong. His past is his past. What I've seen in my observation on President Trump, former President Trump, is that he is publicly acknowledging God, especially recently with the 2 assassination attempts on his life. He's just talking about God more and seems to be growing humbler through his political career, and especially recently. There seems to be a certain direction that he's going in his present and going forward, but there definitely were moral failures in his past. VP Kamala, Vice President Kamala Harris, was in a public romantic relationship with a married man. So you can research that. And it's a little bit hard to kind of suss out. It sounds like the married man was separated from his wife. I don't know if that was like what the degree of that separation was. I am a Christian. Many of you listening would when we're talking about morality or character, we're kind of I'm rating that on a system of the Bible, even just kind of sort of general character. Most people frown on being in a relationship with a married man and would call that an affair, or at least improper. And so that's the only thing I know for certain that was out in the public on Kamala's personal character. There was a 30-year or so age gap between herself and the man that she was having that relationship with. It appears to have helped her politically because he is a powerful political figure. So there's a lot of accusations that it was ladder climbing, that it was using relationship perhaps more to gain political power and promotion, and that's the accusation. It certainly looks like that is a possibility. Let me tell you, I wasn't there, so we'll kind of leave it at that. My personal observation is that the difference with Kamala versus Trump is I'm not aware that she has moved away from that way of thinking or morality. I'm not aware that she has ever apologized for being in a relationship with a married man or blushed over that or thought that was wrong. What you're going to see is I believe she holds a generally just kind of secular morality and view of morality, and not that she has no morals or no good traits or would just have no lines that she wouldn't cross, but it doesn't seem like she's moved away from that. I'm not seeing a trajectory towards God. So I summarized on character on this one right here. I don't think either person has a great past track record, but I like the trajectory of Trump's character a lot more. Just in general, I like the trajectory of Trump's character a lot more, and I think we get stuck on that. So I'm going to move on. And to the next one. So the next, we're just going to kind of keep clipping away. I've got a lot of areas I would like to compare him on. Next one is leadership. Leadership. Start with President Trump again. I personally think that you have to be pretty intellectually dishonest to say that Trump doesn't lead with confidence, that he's not a confident man, and that he doesn't lead with a certain strength, both at home and abroad. And I believe that we need that internationally with both our allies and our enemies. We need our allies to respect us, and we need our enemies to fear us. We need that at home as well, to push for real changes and progress, even when it's unpopular. I think that everyone has to admit, I think it'd be so intellectually dishonest to deny that President Trump knows how to persevere in the face of resistance. Whether it's that, recent the first assassination attempt against his life, when after being shot, as the people say, in the head, grazed his ear. One or two people, I think one died from that attack. I think another was gravely injured. I might be wrong on how many were dead and injured. It's terrible. But he stands up seconds, within a minute or so later, and his fist in the air, screaming "fight!" Defiantly pressing on. That's some resistance, and he knows how to be strong in the face of resistance. The amount of negative media coverage against him, the amount of what many are calling lawfare, these very seemingly, whether they're legitimate or not, targeted persecutions, or it's at the very least prosecutions of him legally. He has shown that he's going to continue in the race, and you know what? He's a fighter. And America needs a fighter in our executive branch to represent us. President Trump fits that bill about as good as anyone I have ever seen in my lifetime. Now let's look at Kamala. Kamala appears to be clearly shifting her views to what she thinks is popular. She's not taking, as soon as she became the Democratic candidate, she's taken very few interviews. She's starting to do a little bit more now, but for a very long time was silent. It's like, if you already know what you believe and think, get out there and tell us. What are you waiting for? She seems to be shifting her views. There would be multiple different areas, from fracking to, it seems like, some gun issues to even economic issues, where she's shifting and maybe moving from far left to kind of more of a centrist view that I don't think. It's just, why are you shifting? That doesn't represent strength and consistency and solidity at the very least. Not that you could never change positions, but it's interesting. I don't see that as a virtue in this situation. She seems to lack the same level of conviction for her beliefs, and therefore the consistency and power that comes from holding true to your beliefs. Trump is willing to shift policies. He's a politician too, a businessman, a negotiator too. He's not totally inflexible, but generally what you see is what you get, and it's what you've seen and gotten all through his elections, all through his 4 years of presidency, and up to today. The shiftingness in Kamala doesn't, to me, show a sign of consistency and a strength of leadership that we can rest on, that we can depend on, that we can build policies on, that our enemies will fear, and that our allies can depend on. I don't think our allies are gonna respect her in the same way they would respect Trump, or fear her. They might like her more. They may even agree with some of her policies, particularly liberal policies, more. But that is different than respect and fear in the way through the strength of the personality and character of the leader. And I don't think she'll fight for what's right despite unpopularity. It seems that she's going to shift according to popularity, and there may be a place for that. But ultimately, I want a leader that is going to be consistent and strong, not easily manipulated. And so that was number 2, leadership. Number 3 is vision for America. Some of these, and this one I would say is definitely true. On some of these categories, I went through and read, information on Trump's website, information on Kamala's website, different articles and research and preparation for this. But nonetheless, I don't have a crystal ball into always their heart, their motivations, and I'm not an expert on Trump or an expert on Kamala. I know a lot more about Trump than I do about Kamala. But nonetheless, on this one, some of these, what I'm going to do is basic. I'm describing not only the person, but the party that they're leading, and the general attitude of their party, and I'm going to kind of sandwich them in with that because I think that they generally align in that way. The thing about the Republican Party as a whole, and the thing about President Trump as a person, this is to me undeniable, is that he loves the America of the past, present, and future. And I'm going to get and explain, okay, he loves the past, present, future. What is that? I'm going to explain that. He's fundamentally proud of America and not ashamed. That would be a generally positive thing, I think, in the leader of our nation, that he would be proud of our past, proud of our present, and proud of our future, and want it, and believing in it, and wanting it to be good. Fundamentally proud of America, not ashamed. I don't think moving from shame should be our core motivation in about anything we do in life. That's as opposed to Kamala. Kamala, like most radical liberals, so the party she represents, seems to be catering to, I don't know if this is her for certain. I suspect it is, but it's definitely of a whole, a wing of the Democratic Party, not all Democrats. Many of them are, and they will say this, they are ashamed with our past as a nation. And there are shameful moments, but it seems that they, and seasons and actions, absolutely, that's called human history. But it appears like it's, for many of them, they feel it to be an almost entire blanket condemnation of our past and much of our founding, and you can see that through their words. You can see it through their toppling of statues and iconic figures, and changing history, and leaving almost no founding father intact, and kind of demonizing them, doing definitely a lot of sort of, I think they call it anachronistic thinking, where they're taking what we know today and putting it and judging them as if they knew that, or as if our situation was the same as theirs. And I think that's generally unwise and unfair. There's, I think, a different way to evaluate history. That seems to be kind of a liberal way to do it. Generally, liberals don't seem to like our present very much. Well, why do you think that? Well, when they're burning down buildings, rioting, refusing to stand for the Pledge of the Allegiance, those are not expressions of a very happy person. It's like things are good. They're expressions of things that radically want to change them. And that's the third point, is I believe that if she's like most of the liberals that she's representing, and I think she is, she wants to take us into a foreign future. What do I mean by that? If they do not like the America of the past, then whatever they're taking us to, they're not returning us to those ideals. They're taking us to something foreign, something new. And maybe new is good sometimes. Maybe it'll be better, but I'm suspicious, because I actually like our founding, and I actually like much of America, and I think the American test over the last few hundred years has been a good one. And there are definitely things I think places we can improve, but there are also places we need to go backwards. And I think they have a much more radical wanting to shift to basically a totally new nation. I think that if she's like most of the radical liberals she represents, she's fundamentally ashamed of America, not proud of it. Or at least her party is. I'm not saying that she has no love for America. I'm not saying that she has that she doesn't want America to, there's none of America's best interests at heart. I don't believe that. Maybe it's the case. I haven't really seen a lot of proof that otherwise, that she does love America, but I also can't say she has no love for America. But I think there's a trend that just really wants to break things down and build them totally different. And if that's your thing, okay. But personally, I like a vision of America that wants to improve upon America, but really also loves our founding and loves our Constitution and loves our freedoms. And so that would be vision for America. I think President Trump and Kamala have very different views. President Trump wants to make America great again. I think the general radical liberal view is America needs to would believe that America needs to burn down and then be built anew again, and hopefully into something I guess they would hope would be great. Number 4 is friendliness to faith. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're enjoying, and it's getting your mind going. Number 4, friendliness to faith. These are just these could have been policy issues, which we're going to go into next, but I have these under just personal qualifications. As a person, as a man, President Trump; as a woman, Vice President Kamala Harris, former President Trump, current Vice President Kamala Harris. What's their friendliness to faith look like? What does past statements, behaviors, actions look like? The reality is, and as a Christian, from my observation and experience, and definitely my feeling, is that Trump is incredibly friendly and supportive of faith in America, and particularly Judaism and Christianity. So Jews, Catholics, Protestants. There's a open and public, and I think true favor and friendliness towards people of faith. It does not appear that President Trump has been a born-again Christian most of his life. I think there's a softening. There seems to be a coming towards God. I don't know, and I don't know that I could know if he's a born-again Christian. There are areas where I feel like, man, he's really representing Christ-like behavior. There are areas where I go, it doesn't appear to be representing Christ-like behavior. It doesn't appear to have the deepest knowledge of Scripture and understanding of things. And I'm not really here to comment on the state of his eternal soul at this moment, but even whether he is a born-again Christian or not, he sure seems to appreciate and respect born-again Christians and Catholics and Jews, and seems to have just a general view of religious freedom that would be favorable and protecting to Hindus and Buddhists and different religions as well. And so that would be my take on him, is that there seems to be, I've seen video of him speaking, I think it was at the UN, promoting religious freedom, championing religious freedom, seen it in different ways in legislation and things he's talked about here in the States. I think it's a pretty clear. Kamala, on the other hand, I'm not aware of any strong actions of support for the average person of faith in the country. But as we'll get into different ways, there are quite a few strong and clear antagonistic actions that are very put people of faith in a very tough spot, that challenge, that put them in danger in terms, at least economically, their freedoms, their ability to practice their faith. It's a pretty much 180 degree or totally polar opposite in many ways. Clearly, many of her policies show she doesn't hold a traditionally Christian view. From my little bit of research on this, I think she identifies as a Christian. So if she were to be elected, she would be the long, I think, unbroken line of presidents who claim to be Christians. I think she has, has attended church, been a part of church to some degree in her life. I think it was Baptist churches, I believe. She also apparently attended and was part of Hindu temples or something from, I think, her Indian heritage. And then I believe, and then of course I believe her husband was spent time at synagogue and is Jewish. So you have she's around different religions. But personally, the behaviors I see her do, the policies I see her hold, don't, to my awareness, align very closely to any religion. They align a lot closer to atheistic secularism. And her policies, to me, are such that they protect and affirm and sort of codify that worldview above all others, to the peril of people of faith, of pretty much almost any faith. Has been my observation on that. And so it's a point of, gives me pause. And there you have it. There are just 4 personal characteristics: character, leadership, vision for America, friendliness to faith. This trend is not going to shift. I personally would give the point on all of these based on what I want for America to President Trump. I think that would be probably clear in my presentation. I'm not pretending to be unbiased in terms of I have already made my decision. I'm going to vote for. I think it's going to be pretty clear on how I say things here, where you can kind of guess where that's going to be. I'm not pretending that I haven't already made my decision. So that question of the day, who should I vote for? That's it's sort of an open question that I had already decided on, that you may be still deciding on. And as we rate this, where I'm seeking to be unbiased is these are the categories, and I'm trying to rate them accordingly. And it just happens that based on the worldview that I want to succeed, President Trump wins all four of these, and I think that trend you'll see is going to continue. If you held a different worldview, if you're like, hey, atheistic secularism, that's my jam, well, then you would give the point of friendliness to the faith, if you want to call it that, of atheistic secularism to Kamala. If you're like, man, America needs to burn, you'd give Vision for America to Kamala. If you thought friendliness was greater, it was more important than strength in terms of international relations, you'd give leadership to Kamala. And once again, if you felt like freedom of choice was the highest moral ethic, then you'd give that to Kamala versus Trump on character. Okay, we're about to keep moving on. Before we jump in now to just key policies and keep this analysis going, I have a quick call to action for you. If you were not already, will you subscribe to this show wherever you're watching or listening? How do the YouTubers say? I think they say smash that like button. I don't even know what that really means. Hit or smash or press some type of button that will subscribe you to the show on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify. I can see that you're subscribed, helps me know kind of the size of our audience. It's then going to be in your feed. You're going to be able to get all these. You can set up notifications. And can we go from just friends to a serious relationship here by you subscribing to the show? I'd appreciate it. Rate it. Love those 5 stars. I just love seeing a full sky of stars. But rate it honestly, and then review it. Give it some thoughts. Tell me in the review what you like, what you don't like, and people will be able to see that and actually paint a picture of what the show is about as more and more people do that. So subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're watching or listening. That'd be an awesome favor. With that in mind, let's jump to policies and keep comparing former President Trump's policies with Vice President Harris's policies. Trump versus Kamala. Here we go. The economy. I think most polls show that the economy is the top concern among Americans, and is going to make, I think, a big difference in who they vote for. On this one, let's start with Trump again. Trump is a businessman. He's well respected internationally at home as a businessman, as a man that can make deals, as a man that can make wealth. He knows how to make wealth, and his priorities are clear. Prosperity for everyone. Trump likes money, and I think Trump, from what I've seen, likes every person from the poor to the rich, everybody, to make more money, to have more prosperity, and to see America great again, beautified again. He's talked a lot about infrastructure, and that's kind of his goal. It's pretty straightforward. He pretty successful business guy. And before he stepped into politics and had some political policies and put his neck out there, all these famous people, all these people of power on left and the right that are now hating him, they were showing up to his events. They were honoring him. They were treating him well. And it's only later that now they're trying to kind of dig at his leadership ability, dig at his business's ability. He is a very successful businessman, and I like a guy like that at the helm of the biggest organization, if you want to call it that, as far as I'm aware in the world, the U.S. government. Help us make money and make wealth and make a lot of it for our nation. I'm very in favor of that. I think you are too. Let's compare that with Kamala. Kamala has been in government for most of her adult life. I think she was relatively young when she ran for, I think it was the AG or the DA, the District Attorney of California, or of San Francisco, and then became the AG of California. And she's been in politics, and it's a very different game. Politics is not usually the business of wealth creation. It's the business of wealth distribution. It's the business of hopefully wise stewardship of wealth spending, but it's very different than the business world. Obviously, politicians can help the nation make money, but she just doesn't have, as far as I'm aware, that nearly the business experience that Trump has. I have no reason to believe that she's world-class at making money or leading others to do so. If someone can send me a message, I'm sure I might get some messages from this one, about some amazing business she has, about the billions that she's raised and all the people she's employed, the thousands of people. I don't think she has done that. I think she's employed people on the taxpayer's dollar, and hopefully led them well. I don't know. In fact, I've heard rumors that she hasn't led them very well, and that there's a lot of turnover on her staffs and disarray. That's an accusation. I'm not there. But she doesn't seem to have the same world-class money-making ability. Her economic goals are less clear. So Trump says, hey, money for everybody, wealth for everybody, top to bottom, bottom to top, whatever. Her economic goals are less clear, and they seem to be about wealth redistribution. Seems to be a lot more worrying about fairness and actually essentially taking from the rich and giving the fair share to the poor, to the underprivileged. That seems to be her goal. Whether you like that goal or not, I don't know that makes the pie any bigger. I don't see where that makes the pie. I don't see where that makes America more wealthy. Maybe it'll make America more equitable, more even, but not more wealthy. And I think that I would love to see. I want to see everybody prosper, but I think focusing on that redistribution versus more wealth and creation and opportunity is very different at the very least, and I would not be in favor of that. Seems like her economic goals are prioritizing the climate a lot. Seems like there is a willingness to maybe actually make poor economic decisions in the short to medium term. Perhaps they will be proved to be with great foresight, that they will prove to be good long-term decisions. But there seems to be a lot of involvement and mixing of what is the term, ecology, environmentalism, and economics in a way that I don't know is going to actually serve us very well. So the little bit I understand, California, for example, and their mandates on electric vehicles, which I believe she is for, and President Trump I'm almost certain is against. It sounds like their grid was just not ready for that shift, and it's causing problems. And so I think some's mixing it in a way that doesn't make sense, or when you don't know what you're doing, causes problems. Seems like her economic goals, once again, are a lot more about wealth distribution, about equality, about DEI, that newer term that's been coming out, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I just think they're very different. One is trying to drive the ship forward into uncharted territory, and the other person's trying to reorganize the chair on the ship to make them more equitable. Very different. And so I'd say that I have very different things on the economy. One's a billionaire and has done a lot of business. One hasn't. And we definitely need economic growth. Not to mention that my observation, understanding is that the economy has been a lot worse the last 4 years under the Biden-Kamala, what's it called, presidency, administration, and that it was better and it was growing under Trump. And so I think seeing some of their policies, and her policies seem to be very in alignment with what Biden's were. They're not working right now in many ways. I think that's obvious, and I don't see why they're going to start working suddenly. Number two under policies, or number 6 in total, is international politics. Okay, Trump is pro-Israel. To many of us, that's important. He helped broker the Abraham Accords. He's helping actually bring peace and collaboration in the Middle East. He's a world-class negotiator. I believe that that's one of his most driving. I think it's what he really is actually driven by. I've heard him even say stuff like that. Like he loves making deals. He's driven by that. He's loved to figuring things out. He's a world-class negotiator. No one that I'm aware of disagreed with that until he disagreed with what he was negotiating for. He didn't involve us in any wars. He did, I believe, send troops or continue to send troops to defeat ISIS. But as far as I'm aware, and what I hear, no long-standing wars the way that, as we'll talk about, like what we're doing in Ukraine, the amount of money and resource we're spending there. He actually decreased tensions with North Korea. He's willing to fight, and so he doesn't have to. One of the things I'm proud about is that I said before President Trump was ever elected the first time that he reminded me a lot of the historical figure President Teddy Roosevelt. That President Trump reminded me a lot of Teddy Roosevelt, And they actually say that the strength with which Teddy Roosevelt led his relationships with different world leaders, that it actually delayed by about a decade World War One. There's something about someone who's willing to fight that actually people say, let's find a peaceful negotiation. Whereas when weakness actually invites, in many cases, aggression. I think there's a way you can provoke someone through aggression. You can also be provocative through aggression. But I think he's done a good balance, and he did get us in a bunch of wars. I think if we go back to the strength of leadership, I believe in international politics, Trump's going to be strong. There's going to be stability. There's going to be some predictability. And I think we'll actually see a de-escalation of some of these major potential conflicts that we see being escalated. Okay, now as opposed to Kamala. Kamala has been part of the administration that, as I understand it, has disastrously pulled out of Afghanistan. Okay, once again, I've never been to Afghanistan, but from the news and the sources that I hear, just billions of dollars in military resource left there. American personnel, I believe Afghani allies left there, and just a disastrous pullout. And she's a part of the administration that did that. She's a part of the administration that failed to bring a quick resolution to the war in Ukraine. President Trump claims that never would have happened, and that if he's back in, he's going to quickly resolve it. I believe him. I don't see why he can't do that, and why he couldn't work something out. But the way in which the Biden-Harris administration has done things, it's led to an ongoing and long war in Ukraine, in which we're spending lots of money and resource on. She appears vulnerable to outside influence and possibly corruption. And this is a big one that I'll come back to in different ways. The shifting of policies, the allying with current President Biden, who also appears to have a lot of shady dealings, where it's like, man, were you or were your family improperly benefiting from international countries and doing things, unseen. There at the very least accusations there. She's tied to that. She's the VP of that administration. The mental decline that we saw and have seen in President Biden, that she to this day seems to have really never acknowledged and appears to have been complicit in hiding. It makes me wonder at her character. It makes me wonder at her stability. It makes me wonder at her uncorruptibility. And so as she's dealing with other strong leaders and both possible offers of future benefit and threats of fear, Trump is a fighter. I don't know that Kamala is, and I don't think, and we need a fighter in our international politics. Don't think she strikes the same fear in our enemies, respect in our allies. And we've actually seen it when your goal is equality, when your goal is some of the policies. Now, I want to see the poor helped. I believe in that. I want to see the downtrodden lifted up. I want to see the vulnerable protected. So I think we all want some of those broad things, and to the degree that she's successfully doing that, I want to applaud her. But we've seen, even as we'll get later to immigration, that it appears trying to treat, almost add a welfare state that extends to the whole world. It does not. It seems to be a very failed experiment, and it doesn't work for, I think, a variety of reasons. At some point, we need someone who is first and foremost taking care of American interests and trusting and letting other nations take care of their own interests. You can't negotiate for both sides, and so when it comes to it, it appears that while millions of people were flooding into our nation, she's working on what she calls, root causes in Central America of the problem. And, and once again, maybe long term, I like the sound of that. Let's deal with the root. Let's just stop it at the source. But in reality, when you have millions of people flooding in, that's maybe not the time to be working on poverty alleviation or whatever, helping the poor over in another nation when we got so many problems here. I think that she might focus on the wrong things in the world stage, and to the detriment of United States citizens. Okay, the next policy. I wrote these all just as numbers, so it's number 7 total. Policy number 3 is abortion. Trump, let's start with him. Trump has never been a radical supporter of abortion at any point in his career, well before politics. Someone could send me something to prove it wrong. I saw an article that was like attacking him. Trump has been on every side of the abortion issue, and so I actually read those quotes and read. I think I then saw a video clip on it, and what I saw was that he's never been a radical supporter. When I saw a video that at one point was younger where he said, okay, he said I'm pro-choice. But he said, basically, I hate it. I hate abortion. I hate it ever happening. I believe I'm believing in a woman's decide for her own body, kind of saying the liberal, playbook there. But I hate abortion. That is very different than the celebration of abortion that the radical left, not every Democrat or liberal believes that way, but the way that the Democratic Party under Kamala, under Biden, has been going, he's never supported that. And that's before politics, during politics. He appointed 3 conservative justices who overturned Roe v. Wade. So very thankful for that. Very thankful that he's able to send the decision back to the states and break it out of a deadlock that was entirely in favor of essentially those in favor of abortion. He's clearly against late-term abortion. So people said, oh, he's different sides. At different moments, he said, hey, I'm pro-life. He's claimed that. Well, recently, he's softened some of his views from from a more maybe super conservative view on abortion. It's disappointed people. I'm thinking of doing a whole episode on this topic and share some of my thoughts, but just kind of focusing on his. But in all of the situations, he's calling, I believe, late-term abortion, particularly now, he's still calling that a monstrosity, and he's against it. He's not a die-hard protector of abortion, and that's going to be very different when we then compare him to Kamala. He's actually been, as many I think other major leaders of pro-life movements have said, he's the most in action. Whatever he said, whatever his beliefs were in the past, whatever anything else, in action, he has been by far the most pro-life president that we've ever had. And I think that's not a point actually I have in this whole thing, but President Trump has been, to me, just a lesson in politics and leadership and the way the world actually works over the last, decade or so, that he's been kind of in the public eye in this way. He has not often looked like the leader that the conservatives wanted. He's not often looked like the person that we expected. He doesn't have a perfect track record or perfect history. He doesn't behave perfectly to this day or say things perfectly to this day. But his actions tend to actually be very virtuous, very helpful, and very good for America, very protecting of religious freedom, very protecting of the unborn, very actually uplifting of all people groups and ethnicities and men and women and ages. So as opposed to, on the left and the right, people who say all the right things and their behavior doesn't correspond almost at all to their behavior. Either they just don't achieve what they promised, or they in fact do the opposite. And so I've learned to value the walk a lot more than the talk. And in this area of abortion, his walk has been very pro-life and protecting of life, and not a diehard protector of abortion by any stretch of the imagination. That's as opposed to Kamala. She's a diehard protector of abortion. She wants women to be able to have abortions. She hasn't come out with a term limit, a weeks limit. She could have done that very easily in the debate that she had, and President Trump was challenging, you guys want abortions all the way up to birth, and she basically acted like that was absurd. Okay, if that's absurd, tell us your ballpark figure of where you would limit it. At what point does that become crazy? And as far as I'm aware, she has never given that. Her track record shows that she's willing to force those who oppose abortion to support it in certain ways. You're going to see this as another path. I believe that Kamala Harris is first and foremost basically a secularist. And what I mean by that is she's not driven by a clear Christian moral worldview or any other religion that I'm aware of. It's a much more just secular view of life and values, and that's what she protects. That's what she sees as normal. Instead of in God we trust, it's, I guess, in our own conscience and freedom we trust. Instead of a nation founded on God and upon biblical principles, it's founded now upon, I guess, the dictates of one's own heart or something other than that. That to me seems to be her view, and she's shown she's willing to fight for that view. But if you have that view, you're like, hey, awesome. But if you don't, she's willing to fight for her view, and she's willing to oppose and force and even cause harm through legal systems, you could say, on those who will resist that worldview. She might say she wants every worldview to have equal rights, but in some cases there kind of has to be a little bit of a winner or loser or another way of doing it. And she's not even pursuing that really. She's pursuing, there is going to be a winner, and it's going to be the secularism. And I'll kind of give a few illustrations on that. She apparently backed a law that required California pregnancy centers, like emergency centers that are often run by pro-life religious institutions, to advertise abortion services. So imagine this, like a Catholic or a Christian pregnancy center helping vulnerable women, which we all say we want to do, but then saying, hey, they have to put up information, let them know they could have the baby, but they could also have an abortion. And I believe California put that into law. She was in favor of it, and then the Supreme Court overturned that. And just imagine how crazy it'd be as a pro-life person. Imagine both directions, having to actually advertise something totally against your beliefs. And she supported it. There's a similar thing. I watched an interview with her from I think about 10 years ago where she's publicly supporting forcing Hobby Lobby to provide contraceptives to their employees as part of their health insurance. So I think during the genesis of Obamacare, and I think Hobby Lobby is essentially saying, hey, we don't want to be forced in providing these things to provide contraceptives. That I think the real argument they had, I didn't look deep enough into it, was probably on like a day after an abortive pill. I don't know that for 100% fact, but nonetheless, they had a religious, I believe, motivation to not provide this thing. And she's saying, no, you have to provide it. She will say often, I'm just trying to protect someone's freedom, but she's actually willing to infringe upon the freedom of someone else in order to protect it. She has picked a side, and it's the side of secularism very clearly. And so that's where the two stand on abortion. With President Trump, what he's saying currently, I think it's somewhat political. I don't know where he actually morally and ideologically stands 100%. But what he's saying is, hey, we're going to leave this to the states. That's what he's saying right now. We're going to leave it to the states, and late-term abortions are crazy. That's kind of what he's saying. What she's saying is we're going to decide for the whole nation. We're going to protect and enshrine Roe v. Wade, that kind of abortion protection at the national level. We're going to take the decision from the 50 states, which is why I like something like this being at the states. So I think there could be a federal law as well. I have some thoughts on that. Is at least when something's at the states, there's somewhat of a free market situation. If a state makes a policy that's not ultimately working, then that's going to be obvious compared to states that make a different policy that is, and hopefully, ultimately, we'll all be wiser for it. But she's going aggressive. She wants to make the decision for all 50 states at the national level, and it's going to be in favor of abortion and enshrining it into law. She's actually willing to break the filibuster. She's publicly in favor of breaking the filibuster in, I believe it's the Senate, which is basically a protection so that it has to have a real consensus among all of the senators to vote something in, instead of just a simple majority. That's a protection of the minority party, which America, it's just as you go into it, one of the key principles of America is that we actually protect our minorities, that we actually protect the minority voice, and instead of having just a one-party system. And she's willing to break the filibuster and push this through because she is a staunch advocate of abortion. Okay, number 8 in total, we're in the policy section here, is illegal immigration. Now, this is crazy what I'm about to say. Trump, as unbelievable as it sounds, wants people to only come into our country legally and wants to remove them when they enter illegally. I know that is absolutely crazy. Imagine it was someone's house. Trump only wants people to go into your house when you let them in legally and voluntarily, and he wants those who break into your house to have to leave. It's absolutely crazy, I know, but that's President Trump's position. And if you can't tell my sarcasm, I think it's a good one. It's a reasonable one. It's reasonable by far. And we're seeing, I think, a lot of the economic and crime and everything else problems when you don't do that. When you say, nope, you can come in the house legally or illegally, and if you come in illegally, there's going to be no consequences, no real consequences. Do you like the results? I personally don't. Kamala was in charge of the border for these last 4 or so years and essentially saw the invasion, or whatever you want to call it, the entrance of literally millions of illegal immigrants, of immigrants who did not come through the legal process, who have not been filtered for crimes and terrorism, who have not shown an ability to add to the overall well-being of the nation. And she's allowed millions of them to come in without doing anything to stop it. They've apparently, and here's what's interesting. Okay, maybe the illegal immigrants just got smarter and more desperate, and they just overwhelmed the very best efforts of the Biden-Harris administration and of Kamala's job as the borders are. But here's the thing. During this election season, as we get close to the election, they've actually, I think significantly slowed down the flow of illegal immigrants, which makes me ask the question, if they could do it now, why didn't they do it for the last 3.5 years? Why now? If they had the power and they didn't do it, then you have to go, that was a conscious decision. And then obviously a lot of thoughts and speculations and fears. Why would you want to have millions and millions of undocumented, illegal, unreviewed and investigated and verified or vetted people come into our country? And most of his answers don't seem very noble or good. And that seems to be where she stands on the area of immigration. On the flip side, switching and closing it seems to be a political move, which once again seems to reinforce this idea that she's not truly living based on a really, really clearly defined principle, but she's doing things on a more pragmatic basis. Though I think the general through line is secularism. Maybe there is actually a compassion element that she's just, hey, let's get all these people in here. Their lives can be better, and have just really great philanthropy and compassion. That's possible. I don't think ultimately it's a justified compassion because it costs other equally innocent people. And so I think it's kind of a filter. It's like it's helping one person that equally hurts another person who is actually first in line for your help and responsibility. That's not a good way to do things. Maybe that's her motivation. It could also be a lot worse. Could actually be just power and trying to capture a new voting bloc and different things like that. But nonetheless, that's where Trump and Kamala stand on illegal immigration. Number 9 in the overall policies and things we're looking at is voting integrity. Trump has some policies that he wants to do to both parties have policies to basically protect voting, and the liberal version would be protecting voters' rights. But they're very different in their approach. And here's my basic summary. None of Trump's proposed voting laws that I'm aware of make voter fraud easier to accomplish, nor do they make voting unreasonably difficult to do. So that's good, right? When you add a new law, that you don't actually create loopholes that make cheating easier. That's generally a good idea. As far as I'm aware, Trump's laws don't add loopholes and make it easier to cheat. And their stated goal is to make it harder to cheat. Secondly, the fear would be, okay, but are you actually making it unreasonably difficult to vote, and therefore maybe actually trying to suppress the vote would be the fear. And no, I'm not saying things being unreasonably difficult. Here's the thing. It's not like, when I go into a sports game, usually there's a quick security check. When I go to the airport, there's a security check. There's a little difficulty getting from here to there, but it's not unreasonable. In fact, it's very reasonable in terms of the little bit of time and inconvenience is well worth human safety. The little bit of inconvenience to, like show your driver's license, prove your citizenship, drive down to the polling place and vote. Oh, I have to drive down somewhere and spend a few hours to shape the future of our entire nation. Oh, it's so unreasonable. No, it's not. There's a reasonable level of difficulty when something as important as voting is involved, and I think that's where Trump's policies stand. On the opposite, Kamala's proposed voter laws all seem to make voter fraud easier, both for non-citizens or bad actors, basically foreign governments that would want to influence our elections, to vote, and for cheaters to vote countless times. Almost all of the laws, their stated goal is to make it, I think, more accessible and easier to do. And yeah, as much as I don't want there's a level of unease, there's a level of difficulty that is reasonable. And by going to extreme lengths, even if they're totally virtuous, if this was totally virtuous, we're going to make it so easy, But at this cost, it's not acceptable. We're going to make it so easy to vote that actually cheaters can vote very easily as well. I'd say that's not a good plan, and that's exactly seemingly the plan that Kamala and the Liberal Party has. Worst case scenario, they know it, and they're creating loopholes because they're going to use loopholes and they're going to try to cheat. Best case scenario, they're trying to be helpful, but there's a point when helpfulness isn't actually helpful and it actually becomes incredibly dangerous. And the policies around voter laws, by giving massive time lengths, you can vote weeks, months early. That creates a huge window for I think problems to happen. The trying to bring down and why are you fighting making everyone prove they're a citizen to vote? The law is only citizens can vote. Therefore, proving you're a citizen seems incredibly reasonable, and yet they're fighting those proofs, doing lots more mail-in ballots by spreading it out, moving things around. It's starting to look a lot like a shell game to me, and it's highly suspicious. I think the party, this is a huge thing at stakes in this election. If President Trump wins, I think he's going to help. They both say that there's a threat to democracy either way. I believe if President Trump wins, he's actually going to help secure democracy through the voting process. I believe if Kamala wins, she will make democracy more fragile by undoing and making the voting system actually more susceptible to cheating. And that's where they stand on voting integrity. Number 10, I'm just going to go through some as we're kind of getting closer. Just a couple of common sense cultural issues, and I just kind of mashed them together. They really could have been their own. One is gay marriage. Trump's not opposed, as far as I'm aware, to gay marriage, but he's also a major proponent of religious freedom. So his policy, his view, he's not opposed to it. I don't know on what grounds, but he's not showing that he's going to legislate that or protect that right, if you want to call it that, in a way that is really offensive and detrimental to people of sincere faith. On the opposite side, Kamala radically supports not just gay marriage, but the LGBTQ plus movement. And she's shown a propensity to favor that secular ideology above and beyond the traditional Judeo-Christian worldview. And I think other world religions similar, that a man is a man, a woman is a woman. Marriage is traditionally between one man and one woman. Obviously, there are religions that have had, polygamy and different views and things like that. But definitely, let's just focus on, Judeo and Christian worldview. She's radically in favor of a different way of doing things. On her own website, KamalaHarris.com, there's this quote. In 2004, she officiated some of the nation's first same-sex marriages, and as Attorney General, she refused to defend California's anti-marriage equality statewide referendum. I believe that is where, like they did in Oregon, where the people of California at that time actually voted to affirm that marriage was between one man and one woman, and she refused to defend it. Right? Instead of defending the law as it's written, she defended the law as she saw in her heart and mind and decided. As president, she will fight to pass, this is still the quote, as president, she'll fight to pass the Equality Act to enshrine anti-discrimination protections for LGBTQ, there's another letter there, I don't know, plus Americans in healthcare, housing, education, and more. Okay, I don't want discrimination or attack on anybody. So when you say anti-discrimination, okay, I'm happy with anti-discrimination. But when you actually see how these, air quotes here, protections are put up, they usually are actually, they're not really concerned with trampling on people's religious views, which are opposed to most of the LGBTQ movement and those ways of lifestyle and sexuality and so forth. So neither of them is a staunch conservative on this one, but Trump is a lot closer than Kamala, and the directions they're going to go are really polar opposites. Okay, gun laws. Trump's a pro-Second Amendment guy. As far as I'm aware, he's very pro-guns, freedom on that. The liberal platform has been for, I believe years and years and years, I don't know if it's decades, quite anti-guns and wanting gun controls and gun protections. And she said at one point she was in favor, I think I saw an article on forced buybacks, where they're going to force you to sell your I think like assault weapons and different things back. Once again, recently she's saying she's a gun owner. She's literally said that if someone comes into her house, she's going to shoot them, and then laughed about it, seemingly trying to play tough. I don't really buy it. Maybe she is. Maybe she just kind of loves guns and is really common sense and centrist on this. But I don't think that. I'd have to look deeper into her policies on that. But that's where they kind of stand on the gun laws. DEI, which I'm just learning more about. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Trump wants opportunities for everyone. He created opportunity zones for, I believe, Black Americans in places there. He's seeing he wants opportunities for everyone. He really does seem to be cool with Latins, with blacks, with whites, with Asians, and he wants the opportunity for everybody. It's pretty simple. Kamala is unbalanced, I believe, in her focus of opportunities for those she deems more in need. So instead of just saying, "Hey, everybody, that's kind of we're not going to really think about race too much and all this. We're just going to give opportunities and have at it." And we want to, and obviously, and he actually is still doing somewhat to specify, I think, the opportunity zones, underprivileged. Let's help them, but not nearly to the degree that is, I think, such a priority and an imbalance for Kamala to focus those opportunities for those more in need and actually ban people that she sees as having lots of opportunity from those opportunities. Not only let's find ways to level the playing field, it's actually more the opposite. Let's unlevel the playing field to level the playing field. Let's actually discriminate to stop discrimination. I think that's going to backfire. I don't think that is going to work. On transgenderism, Trump wants to keep men out of women's sports. Once again, I don't think he has any problem with people dressing how they want to dress or anything like that, but he's going to call a biological male, and a biological female. He may be slightly more liberal than that, but definitely with sports. He's not a radical on transgenderism, and he's clear that he wants to keep men out of women's sports. It's an unfair advantage, if nothing else. Based on their biology. Kamala wants the federal government, I think the federal government actually is doing this currently, to pay for prisoners' sex change operations. I don't know if this is politically motivated or if these are her true views, but some of the places she shows the most conviction and the most passion are in some of these secular areas of abortion and transgenderism and things like that. And she's in favor, as far as I'm aware of, and I think the government is actually already doing it, of paying for sex changes, if that's the right term, for transgender people in prisons. And you're just like, is that really where our tax dollars should be going in light of all of the need? She seems to be radical on some of these issues. Okay, number 11, we're wrapping up towards the close, is the deep state and elitism. Where do these people stand on it? Trump was an elite who left a comfortable position to make America great again. Liberals liked him, conservatives liked him. He had lots of money. He was an elite, and he still is in the sense that he has wealth, but he left the popularity zone to make America great again. And now the bureaucratic state, that portion of, if you want to call it the deep state, that just stays after president, they remain, and they have lots of power that voters never truly gave them or don't know that they have. They don't seem to like him. Bureaucrats don't seem to like President Trump. Bureaucrats tend to, I think, not like entrepreneurs. The intelligence agencies don't like him. People that we need, intelligence agencies, thankful for him, but also can get into some shady stuff, and have seemed to have had a habit of spying on their own people and letting their biases affect their work. They don't seem to like him. They don't seem to like the lights and the accountability that he wants to shine on them and the challenging he's doing. They don't seem to like him not playing ball in the way that apparently other presidents did. And this is maybe most of all, the elitist media don't like him. If you're watching the news at all, you can just see these people are not even they're not even really hiding how biased they are. They're not even hiding how despicable they think he is, and it's shaping all of their reporting. Elitists don't like Trump, and I don't think elitists are what's best for our nation. So you put two and two together. Kamala, on the other hand, has made her whole career climbing the ladder within the government. I appreciate our government. I appreciate our public servants, and at the best, that's what they are. They're serving. They're helping the nation. But at worst, it's very easy to gain power through popularity, gain power through backdoor deals, gain power in different ways that are can be shady, can be less than virtuous. The bureaucracy seems to like her, and the administration that she's been a part of, the Biden-Harris administration. Same with the intelligence agency, the justice system. It appears pretty obvious that the Biden-Harris administration has weaponized the judicial system to go after their political opponents. That seems pretty obvious and apparent. Even if ultimately they found legitimate laws to pin against them, the pinpoint focus, and even actually at times Democratic district attorneys or AGs or different things running on that promise, I'm going to go after this person. You don't pick a person and then find a crime. You find a crime and then go, okay, I guess that's the person who committed it, and follow through. And so she seems to have been very much working with the justice system. I'm not condemning the old justice system, but in a way that's less than becoming. The elitist media worship her. When you saw that debate, I just thought that was one of the debate between former President Trump and current Vice President Harris. The bias of the interviewers I just felt just terrible. I just felt it was a disservice to our nation, who just need to hear clear and honest answers from both people. And instead, you feel the media absolutely putting their hand on the scale of justice, putting their hand on the outcome of this election, instead of being a kind of an honest and somewhat unbiased, or at least honest in our biases, passer on of what is going on. The media worship her. They're helping her. They seem to be protecting her, mollycoddling, if that's the right term, her in the interviews, and just almost feeding her answers, and while just attacking Trump in ways that I think are unprecedented. Once again, she seems vulnerable to outside influence. She seems to be getting a lot of favors in the judicial system, a lot of favors in media and other places. Those are the two that come to mind. Who's going to call those favors in? What's going to happen? I don't know for a fact, but I think she's vulnerable to it. It seems like she panders to it. It seems like she takes advantage of seemingly backdoor deals and relationships and good old boy things and elitism. And the deep state, the elites, that's not, I believe that most of them do not have the best interests of the average American at heart. And I think she seems to align on that side a lot more versus President Trump, who's really ticked him off and, as he says, is seeking to drain the swamp. That seems to be one of his big issues in his first term, is he didn't know who was a swamp and who wasn't, and he got attacked from within a lot. This time around with him, with the help of RFK Jr., who I'm going to talk about in a second, they're looking to drain the swamp, and I can't wait. I think it's probably terrifying a lot of people. And I'll just pause on that for 1 second. All humans are vulnerable to corruption and are corrupted to some degree. We all need Jesus. We all need to be held accountable. We all, I believe in grace too. I need grace too. But so it's no wonder that our state or those in power would start erring towards things that are not good for the nation, that are good just for themselves, would not begin to be corrupted. That's the natural way of things. And so we need people to come in. And so I'm not looking as a self-righteous person just saying I'm perfect, and those in the government, the swamp and the bureaucrats and the media, they have all the problems. No, I need Jesus to purify my heart. I need to keep checking my own motives. I got to keep doing the work too. But our nation is desperately in need of some spring cleaning, and accountability, and putting in people that are gonna do their jobs with ethics and character, and hopefully a good moral compass. Okay, number 12, the final policies. There are 8 policies, if my math is right, and 4 personal areas, equaling 12 that we looked at. And so number 12 here is the health and environmentalism. Trump. I love the combo that we have in this term that's coming up, of a capitalist like Donald Trump partnering with a health conscious environmentalist like RFK Jr. If you've been watching news at all, you've seen that RFK Jr. has dropped out of the race in most states. Is endorsed Trump, is actually is going to be part of his administration, is the plan. When I see the two, I go, okay, I think we're going to have good stewardship and a leaning towards growth and some risk and some economics and some entrepreneurial attitudes. But we're also going to have, but we're also going to have good stewardship of the earth. I think I mixed those two up here, but good stewardship without fiscal recklessness. And that, when I wrote it there, we're going to steward the earth well. We're going to steward the environment well, but we're not going to be fiscally reckless, which I think is what at times happens with the Democrats. They go too far, too fast, and in some ways in totally wrong directions with environmentalism, that it has massive real world today implications in the economy, and it's not necessarily thinking long term, it's just causing problems today. And I like the idea of a business guy and an environmentalist getting together to say, let's save the environment, let's keep it healthy and the air pure and the water pure, but let's also make some money, have some business, and let humans thrive on the earth, not act like they're a parasite on the earth. I also like that Elon Musk may be joining voluntarily, the administration to help prevent waste, to look and to begin to cut down the waste. I like getting men and women, those happen to be men in this situation, in there who are going to be dedicated to cutting down the waste. I got to look at my own budget often, and I got to make sure things are where they should be. The nation needs to do that. I totally believe in a balanced budget amendment, that we should have to only spend what we take in. I like Elon jumping on there for that. I like RFK jumping in on the environment, on the health of the nation, pushing back against big pharma, big ag. I like his whole slogan is instead of MAGA, Make America Great Again, it's MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, and we need it. I think it's a massively important existential thing for our nation, and so I like the kind of trifecta of Trump, the real estate mogul, RFK, the health guy, the environmentalist, and a guy that's deeply aware of the deep state, knows the government, and is going to be able to clean things up, I hope and believe. And then a massive, big thinker and kind of genius in Elon Musk. I like that team right there a whole lot. Kamala, on the other hand, seems to prioritize ideology over practicality. With some of these mandates and these timelines, it seems like they're driven as they're, I'll hand it to them. They seem more passionate about pursuing these virtues of environmentalism than sometimes we who hold moral and what we believe are eternal values are at defending our values. They are passionate about being green, at least publicly. I wonder sometimes what's the real motive. But sometimes it seems to trip them up, and actually the practicality, how we're going to pay for this stuff, is not thought through. How is this going to affect business people and businesses and workers today? And it doesn't seem to be thought through. She also seems to lean more towards government control and power, whereas both people are saying we want to help the nation, but the general conservative policy is smaller government to help increase the wealth and the pie of the people, and the more Democrat-leaning policy is bigger government to help increase the pie of the people. And I know which side I stand on that, but in pursuing her environmental deals, instead of giving, I think, more free choice to the people like RFK would do on some of the health decisions, she's actually going to say, we know what's right for you, we know what's best for you, and we're going to protect your opportunity to do exactly what we want you to do. I think that's a pretty good point there, because I think that tends to be the liberals' playbook, is we want to give you absolute freedom to do exactly what we want you to do. We want to protect it and totally protect your rights to choose within our secular worldview and to be the kind of voter and person we think you should be, while penalizing everything else. Whereas a true freedom is we want to protect your rights, and you may go for us, you may go against us. It's a lot broader spectrum of freedom. And I think the way the two parties and Trump versus Kamala would approach environment, approach health of the nation, and approach those things are very different. One would actually do it through control, one would do it through freedom and taking off of regulations. Okay, in conclusion, just wrapping this thing up, I hope you've been encouraged. I hope your mind is expanded. The governance of our nation, it affects all of us. Kind of started with that. That's why I want to talk about this and think about it. And I want to continue to deepen my understanding and clarify my position, my thinking on key issues. And I also want to keep growing in wisdom and discernment when it comes to politics. There were moments in preparing for this podcast that were fun, and there are moments that they weren't, because you're just hearing lies, and you're hearing accusations, and you're hearing people make their policies sound the best they possibly can, and you're trying to filter through what is the real world implication. What is your real belief? What is your real intention? What are you going to do, not just in your words or even, but in your actions? And it takes a keen discernment. And so hopefully in this conversation, I believe I'm actually sharper through the preparation of this podcast, through having it with you, of speaking here and now. I hope as you're listening and as maybe you do your more study on these areas, that your discernment, because we on the podcast are not in it for just the next 50 days of this election. We're in it for a lifetime, and really building for generations to have a generational wealth of wisdom that we have and we can train our kids in. And I think part of that comes through conversation, through analysis, through thinking and thinking deeply on these issues. I hope that there's some clarity for you as we've done so. And here's my final question, partly lighthearted, but true. Trump versus Kamala. Did this side-by-side comparison help you to decide who to vote for? Were you already going to vote for them? Did it give you a couple more points to affirm your side or against the other side? Either way, I'd love to hear about it. Message me on social. Email me at geno@genoschmelzer.com. You can put a comment wherever you're watching or listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And I hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. Final thing you can do for me is, before you leave, rate, review the show, and subscribe to it wherever you're watching or listening. God bless you. God bless our nation. We want to, all of us as a community, keep praying for our nation. Keep doing all that we can. I did a different episode a few back you could jump to. What should I be doing during an election year, which is more broad on just, be informed, pray for the nation, and raise up children and people who are going to have a wisdom on how to lead our nation in the future. Let's have an optimistic, big-term picture on all of this, while looking short-term. So we make good decisions now, but also we gain wisdom for the long term. God bless you guys. Talk to you later.